I definitely have an attitude of gratitude this morning. There's nothing like standing up here and seeing so many faces smiling at me and hearing the harps of heaven. Hark, it's heaven calling. Thank you, Dwayne. I also have an attitude of gratitude for all of those who are usually with us, who are at this moment stirring big pots of delicious soup down at Johnny Appleseed. And you see that I have dressed in their honor. Yeah. We had a great time down there, and one of the announcements that we did not make, which we've plastered everywhere, I want to let you know that we have 56 quarts of delicious soup downstairs, and we will happily pass those on to you for a small donation. And I would love for the refrigerator to be empty at the end of service. So if everybody takes a quart, then it should work out really well. So I wonder this morning, how many of you need a change in attitude? Yeah? Maybe a few? So I have to tell you that when my dad would say to me, "Young lady, you need an attitude adjustment," it was neither pleasant nor a good thing, and there was probably going to be some pain involved. Oftentimes involving my car keys and curfew. So I hope today that as you adjust your attitude, that it is neither painful nor unpleasant, but instead that you see that by shifting your attitude, you can unleash the divine potential that is within you. So this month, we're celebrating the power of prayer, and we are also celebrating the divine potential within us. And we are using Eric Butterworth's book, The Power Within. Last week, I read from this book what Eric writes. When we know the truth of this great spiritual potential within us, which Jesus called the kingdom of God within, we are free to become our unlimited self, free to do unlimited things. So what I know is that in order for me to reach this unlimited possibilities within myself, I often need to adjust my attitude. That there are very specifically today some B attitudes that we're going to talk about to help us unleash the power, the divine potential within. So the Beatitudes. For those of you who are not familiar with the Bible, there is a portion of the New Testament known as Sermon on the Mount. Now, what scholars believe is that at one time Jesus did a series of lectures. So he gathered all of his followers around. We're not sure that it was actually done on a mountain. We're not sure where it was done or if it was done in several locations. But we know that over a period of time, Jesus gave several teachings. And the purpose was to lay a foundation for this new group of followers, this new following called the way to be in the world. So the Beatitudes are the very first portion of Sermon on the Mount. And they are unique in that they are 8 verses of prose. Now 8 is similar to the Eightfold Path of Buddhism. 8 you'll see show up a lot of times in a lot of different religions because metaphysically 8 represents preparation. You know, we have to prepare ourselves to receive our good. We have to prepare ourselves to grow in consciousness. We have to get ready. And so the Beatitudes are a set of instructions for getting ready to awaken even more, getting ready to receive even more of your good, to get ready for all that you can be in the world. The interesting thing about the Beatitudes is that every single one of them begins with the word blessed. And I love what Eric says about this word, blessed be. He says, blessed is a one-word definition of all the good that will come to you if you understand and live by these amazing attitudes of being. Sounds like unlimited potential to me. So, what is our first B attitude? Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed be the poor in spirit. So it doesn't say that you have to go sell everything that you own. It doesn't say that money is evil. In fact, you won't see any do's or don'ts in the Beatitudes, because Jesus was not about conforming. Jesus' ministry was about transforming. Be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And so the Beatitudes are about changing your mind. So then what does poor in spirit mean? Eric shares with us, to be poor in spirit means to empty yourself of the desire to exercise personal will in the quest for self-realization. To empty yourself of personal will. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about the difference between willfulness and willingness, right? And willingness is about opening your hands instead of saying, like the 2-year-old, I'm going to do it my way. Opening. So being poor in spirit is about releasing and letting go of all those things that we're holding on to so tightly. Because you know what? None of it belongs to us anyway. In this teaching, in another portion of the New Testament, Jesus demonstrates this point with a parable that he tells, a story about the rich young man. So a rich young man comes to him and says, this is great. This is really great stuff. I want to follow you. I'll go anywhere. I'll do anything. Oh, what is it that I have to do? And Jesus says, oh, it's really simple. Go home, sell everything you own, say goodbye to your family, leave everything behind, and follow me. And the young man leaves saddened. Now, Jesus wasn't in the business of, he didn't want this guy's money. It wasn't about the possessions. It was about the attachment to the possessions. We get really attached to our stuff. We like our stuff. I'm a kitchen stuff kind of girl. I think every new kitchen stuff that comes out I need to have. You know, we like our stuff. We also get attached to who we are in the world. Ask someone, when we first meet them, one of the first things we ask is, what do you do? As if what we do defines who we are. So we become attached to that. I'm a therapist, I'm a minister, I'm a salesperson, I'm a doctor, I'm a teacher. We become attached to that. And when we become attached to who we are in the world, when we become attached to what we have in the world and our status and our roles, there's no room. There's no room for spirit to move through us. So when Jesus says, blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are those who can let go and make space. Because it is only when there is space that spirit can move through us and use us and fill us. And so if we were to affirm this today in unity, this beatitude would look like, I daily release what no longer serves me. Will you say that with me? I daily release what no longer serves me. I am open and receptive. I am open and receptive to the inflow and outpouring of all it is. To the inflow and outpouring of all that it is. That sounds great. All right, so B attitude number 2. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Mourn, okay, that sounds like a drag. Who wants to go around wearing sackcloth, right? And yet, this is what I know. That there is a part of us that loves to be independent and loves to do things our way. And oftentimes, we are always looking out here for what is going to make us happy, for what is going to feed me, what is going to make things better. And it is only when this fails that we are willing to reach inside. I know that in my own spiritual journey, when I have grown the most, I've been in the greatest pain. That oftentimes I have to be driven to my knees before I'm willing to let go and surrender. And so mourning doesn't mean that you have to suffer to grow spiritually. However, suffering comes along the journey sometimes whether we want it or not. That sometimes pain happens. Sometimes we face challenges that we didn't think we were holding in consciousness, that we didn't think we signed up for. And what Jesus is saying is to bless those. Can you imagine, instead of fighting against it, if you could simply know that you're just right where you are, and this too shall pass. When we are willing to bless every circumstance in our life, we are comforted. Now, oftentimes we think of comfort as you're going to soothe me, you're going to make me feel better. But when we look at the Greek translation of that word, actually what it means is to know the presence of God. And so it is in our times of trouble, in our times of difficulty, in our times of challenge, knowing like we know that there is something bigger inside of us. That there is something greater than us that can meet whatever that challenge is. And so our unity affirmation for our second beatitude is, I bless all of the circumstances. We say that? I bless all of the circumstances of my life, knowing they are opportunities. Of my life, knowing they are opportunities to more deeply experience the one power and the one presence. To more deeply experience the one power and the one presence. All right. Attitude number 3. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are the meek. Meek. All right, so I think of someone who's scared of their own shadow. Or maybe that quiet little librarian that goes to work every day and never says a word. See, the problem is we confuse meek with weak. And in truth, what the Bible says in Greek is a word called praeis. P-R-A-E-I-S. Praeis. And praeis is closer to the connotation of harnessing that which is wild and unrestrained. So, anybody's mind ever go wild? Right? Has your tongue ever been unrestrained? Yeah. See me tromping around in the mud, and I can show you some unrestrained tongue. Or traffic when I'm in a hurry, right? Are there not times when our mind is wild and unrestrained? Yes, absolutely. And yet our unity principles teach us that we create our reality by the thoughts that we think, by the thoughts we hold in our mind. And so what this beatitude is telling us is rein it in. Rein it in. Harness it. Harness that power that's already within us. Harness your mind, your thoughts, your consciousness. Eric Butterworth writes of meek, the best conductor of divine power is the person who is non-resistant to the flow of divine power. This attitude comes from the conviction that God is always the answer to human needs, and willingness to submit wholeheartedly to the flow of the Spirit in and through us. Have you ever done something that you knew was going to turn out badly, but you did it anyway? Yeah. This is about harnessing that power. This beatitude is about knowing that there is a greater force at play and willing to jump in the flow instead of fighting against it. Right? Oftentimes we are swimming upstream when it's way easier to just go with the flow. Right? And so this unity affirmation is, I am in divine flow. I am in divine flow. Inspired and directed by all that is. Inspired and directed by all that is. All right, we're up to our final beatitude for this morning, because I know some of us want to eat soup later and we don't want to stay for a service for 2 hours. So, our fourth beatitude. Blessed are they who hunger and thirst over righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness. So any of us that grew up in a church, when we hear righteousness, we immediately do this, right? I grew up with the understanding that righteousness meant without sin. And it seemed to me that the older I got, the longer that list of sins got. And at some point, I decided I was never going to be righteous. And so, I should put all of my effort into being unrighteous. And to do as many things on that list as humanly possible. That probably wasn't the best idea I ever had. Righteousness is not about perfection. And there are a lot of opinions about what right is. I happen to appreciate Eric Butterworth, who says righteousness is simply right thinking. Right thinking. And so every time I align my thoughts and my actions with my divine nature, I'm righteous. So that means that when I think loving thoughts, when I use my imagination for good, when I show another person understanding, when I step out in faith, I am righteous. I am righteous. So let's talk about hunger and thirst. Anybody ever had a craving for something? So I have to tell you that as soon as I go on any new food plan, that's code for diet, I immediately start craving things like ice cream, cracked donuts, hot fudge sundaes, apple dumplings. And you know, it doesn't matter how many pieces of fruit I consume, how many of those carrot sticks I gnaw on, or how delicious that beautiful non-sugar sweet smoothie I whip up tastes, I am not satisfied. It is not enough. Because I am hungry for that which I crave. By the same token, when you're out in the hot sun and you've worked, you've mowed your grass, you've weeded your garden, you've been out hiking, and you come in, have you ever had that thirst that was unquenchable? Like you drink and you still want more? That is the hunger and thirst that Jesus is talking about. Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines it as a desire for something more. A desire for something more. And so in this beatitude, what we are being called to do is to hunger and thirst, to want something more. To never be okay with status quo. To never be okay with just being right where we are and never growing another inch. It is instead about having this strong desire to mold our thoughts so that they are in line with our divine nature. So that we are always truth seekers. Even Charles Fillmore, which the foundation of unity is built upon, said, I have the right to change my mind. What I wrote in 1938 is not the same as what I'm writing in 1948. I have the right to grow in consciousness. That's called a hunger, a desire to be all that we can be, for that divine potential to be with us 100% of the time. I know that I will have arrived when I'm not here anymore. Until then, I need to hunger and I need to thirst. And when I do, I am filled, because that's what the verse says. When we hunger and thirst for righteousness, we shall be filled. What that means is that divine source is unlimited. Divine source is always waiting to fill us, always waiting to take us higher and higher, if we are but open and seeking. And so our last unity affirmation for the Beatitudes is, I seek truth with all my mind and all my heart, and I find. Will you say that with me? I seek truth with all my heart and all my mind, and I find. Absolutely. Eric Butterworth says that when we live these attitudes, when we can live this life, have a mental attitude that reflects these things, then we are able to tap in to that power within us. He writes, we have within us at every moment of our lives the great potency, which is God. The great potency, which is God. When we are willing to be poor in spirit, to empty ourselves so that there's space for source to move in us and through us. When we are willing to bless all the circumstances of our life, all the challenges, to mourn. When we are willing to be meek, to harness our thinking and our thoughts, harness that power within us. And when we are willing to hunger and thirst for the truth, then we will be able to live a life that is unlimited in its possibilities, unlimited in its source. And we will be filled with gratitude, thanksgiving, appreciation, filled with holy love, filled with spirit. Indeed, you are blessed, and may you be filled. Namaste.